You have reached the life model decoy of Tony Stark. Please leave a message.
Welcome to the official Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast. My name's Ian.
And my name's Nikki, bringing you the best in comics and graphic novels and updates from the festival.
Hello, welcome to episode 24 of the Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast. My name's Ian.
And I'm Nikki.
And I'm sure we're going to die in the next few months from Russia.
Well done. Nothing like making
From
sure
Russia
that they're going to...
with love, James Bond will save us.
Well, I like the little vibrato you put on your voice
Thank
then.
you.
Like a little old lady.
Oh. I was trying to be
What were you
James
trying to be?
Bond
You were
because he
trying to
sings
be-
the main theme tune.
I was
all
going to
the
say,
time.
James Bond sings all of them.
He sings the theme tune.
Even when
he
he's
writes
Tina
the theme
Turner.
tune. So Russia's going to kill
Not
us.
Tina
so
Turner, Shirley Bassey is what I meant to say.
Shirley Batty.
Shirley Bassey.
That's your new name, Shirley Batty.
No, it's not.
Pull your stockings up, love.
That's Nora Batty.
Oh, yeah. Same difference.
Going well.
Same difference. So we've got no reviews this week because we've got two interviews.
Yes.
We have got the Englishman in San Diego
Yes.
came to have a chat.
He's lovely. I
He
did
is
say I'd
lovely.
say that.
That's Leonard Sultana.
Lovely.
And also Chris and Andrew from the Toronto Comic
They're
Convention.
lovely.
So we spoke to them last year at the festival about the Toronto Comic Con, and we thought we'd get it on. And then we thought we'd do sort of a con episode.
We're going to con the
Yeah,
con the public.
there's no interviews. Hence why we got Leonard on as well, because he runs a website which is devoted, or not devoted, it's devoted to conventions, but originally
Yes.
it was San Diego
Yes.
alone. Now it's spread and it's doing conventions around the UK and America and everywhere else. So, brilliant chats with both of them.
Yes.
Leonard's such a lovely guy.
Very lovely.
He wants us to go on a panel at Thought Bubble or a
wants
little chat on his podcast, I should say.
You to go on a pan. I'm
Well, it's not a
sure
panel,
I
it's his
wasn't.
podcast, isn't it?
I
And,
wasn't included in that.
so we'll see,
I'm
maybe.
positive.
If it happens, we're both on it.
No.
Oh, we are.
I'm quite happy being a voice in the ether.
A voice in the ether. Okay.
No one needs to put face and voice together.
The festival
Yes.
has given its first guests.
It's so exciting.
We'll talk about them after the interviews.
Yeah.
So hold on for that. Mm-hmm. And if that wasn't enough,
Go on. Just throw it all at me now.
we've got music at the end of the show as well.
Look at us.
We-
We're like properly rocking here.
We are metal.
Metal.
We are like aluminium.
Foil.
Oh, that'll do. I'll shut up there. Before we play the interviews, we've got some Kickstarters to talk about. The first one, I've actually got two, is Nick Prolix Slang Pictorial,
Oh.
which is 24 pages of classic cartooning set in 1960s London, featuring the sheep and the wolves, a retro comic full of big dreams and bigger hair.
I like.
Yes. It feels very 60s, the artwork.
Which
in
is
there,
good because it was set there in the 60s.
Yeah, but it's not always achievable to get that look, and he really has. Looking at the artwork, and he really has. This is issue 3 that he's releasing. So go and check that out. Just search for Slang Pictorial or Nick Prolix Slang Pictorial on Kickstarter. It's looking really cool. He's breaking his goal. He's doubled his goal already.
He's doing well then.
It finishes on the 7th of April, so plenty of time to get
It's
on
my mum's
there.
birthday.
Happy birthday.
To my mum.
So go and have a look at that, please, because it is well worth it. The other one is one we talked about a while back with the Etherington Brothers. It's the Etherington Brothers.
Everyone needs to get this.
How-
I mean, we are.
How to Think When You Draw book, plus sketchbook number 3, plus Stransky.
Would you like to try again?
No, I'll leave it there. So there's 3 different parts, as I've just said there. So there's a 200-page full-colour hardback tutorial book, which is what we've...
Yes.
We've-
It's been
we've-
like
we've slapped
my little
down.
go-to Bible, that will.
So if you're not sure what this is, have a look on the website. Every day he puts these tutorials
Oh, yeah,
up
they're all up there for free.
Free of charge.
Yeah.
But
They're
you can-
amazing.
Or you can just waste loads of money and buy a book because it is amazingly gorgeous and it's so useful.
Yes, I was going to say, it's not exactly wasting loads of money.
No, it's not.
Then.
I'm just making a point that they're actually free, but
yes.
like many of them.
I want to be able to go and flick through the book.
We like to have them on hardback.
Yes.
You can buy, at the minute, the Hulk, loads of Hulk graphic novels for 69p to download. I'd rather spend 15 quid and buy the book. You know, it just shows we like those physical things.
You do, because you also sniff them.
Right. Please disagree with me, audience. When you get a new book, don't you like to smell that new, fresh paper smell?
No.
You know that you are in the minority
I
from
don't
the people
see
you've
why.
spoken to already.
I spoke to a load
Minority.
of people that play Warhammer.
Minority.
And they're on the fringes.
Anyway, to the Etheringtons.
Okay.
There's also the 600-page black and white soft book sketchbooks, the deluxe collection number 3. And then, as I say, a reprint of the Stransky 100-page full-colour hardback art book.
Yes.
It's hard to say these things.
Well, yes, because they went, well, it all went like hotcakes, didn't it, last time they did this? Which is why they've bought that what is it?
Stransky.
Stransky. I could do it when I could see it written down.
Now, this one finishes on April the 6th. So you've got April the 6th, and then the following day, get on and do.
You're going to have no money in April. No. Well, when they come out.
Well, I'm going to say, no, April, that's it. It comes out like a day or two later. June.
Yeah, that's it. Just be accepting. And it's Easter, so you're not going to have an Easter egg.
When we're recording this on the 14th.
Yes.
They only wanted £1,000. £87,000.
Wow. They're buying a yacht, aren't they?
Well, you say they. It's Lorenzo.
Lorenzo's buying a yacht.
That's crazy, but it just shows the fact he's put. I mean, it's not just that one book, but he's put. I think you can draw all that. It's all out there free. Yeah, I bet a lot of the pledges. In fact, there you go, 832 pledges for that book.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing.
And it's free, and it just shows.
Yes, but
you know what it does? It just shows the quality and the usefulness that is going to give to people.
Yeah.
For drawing, or even not necessarily for drawing, just to flick through and have a look.
Oh, it is a go-to thing, and having it there in a book means it's on my shelf, so I don't have to search through on the internet. Basically,
no, it's amazing and fair play. Fair play. We're also delving for the first time into buying trades and having a regular comic subscription, aren't we?
You are. You seem to have delved into this. Well, I was just told after you pressed subscribe to a load of stuff.
Well, we've always bought collected editions or graphic novels and stuff, but and I suppose 2018 is like a subscription. You wanted it posted through
the door, don't you? Like the kids get their Phoenix comic.
I just want to get into stuff that we won't get to because collected editions don't always come out in these comics, you know. And I just want to do something different. So, and I thought, Batman, and that's gone now. It's like, no, I don't want Batman. I want something completely different. So, one of the things we started on is the new Labyrinth.
Yes,
which we'll review once we got into it a bit more.
I read the first one.
The artwork is gorgeous.
It is gorgeous.
Really nice. It's a prequel of how the Goblin King.
Well, yes. It is a prequel of how the Goblin King comes about.
Well, what were you going to say? It's not then?
Well, because it's set like at the moment in
it's still a prequel
film where obviously Toby's been got and she's stuck in the oubliette.
It's still a prequel.
So, yeah, I know.
They're just bringing you into the world by doing that, aren't they?
They're just setting it into that point of the film where that storyline is just stopped while he then
tells a tale to Toby of his life.
Yes.
But yeah, no, it's good. I love the artwork of Mr. Bowie, the Goblin King. It's so recognisable him,
and not him.
But it's not a direct copy as such. It's ideal. So
yeah, it's the character he portrayed more than him as a person.
And I'm going to talk about this briefly now before the interviews, just because we've got so much to talk about after the interviews in regards to the festival. We are, and this is my fault again, doing another podcast. The Comic Art Festival podcast presents My Neighbour.
Yes.
What's My Neighbour?
We're doing a Ghibli-based one because someone loves Ghibli. That'd be me, covered in tattoos of Ghibli. Someone doesn't get it. And I'm going to force it. I mean, not forcing. We are going to watch every single Ghibli film, and I will convince him that they are amazing.
The plan is to release once a month, maybe more, but at the minimum once a month.
I think once a month, because some of these I have to get hold of.
Well, yeah. We're going to look at the history of each film, look at the directors, the artists, the creators, what we can find information on that. We'll talk about that, and then we'll do a review on our opinion on the film.
Well, I can already tell you.
Yeah, but I'm going to give my opinions and see. My issue, it's not an issue, but they just don't seem to go anywhere a lot of the time.
They don't need to. They don't need to. They give you a moment. I mean, most of them. Let's not even talk of Grave of Fireflies, because that's just going to give you a moment. That's
second or film watching, because we're going to do it in order of release as well.
Release when they became Studio Ghibli. We're not going to the ones before.
Apart from Nausicaa, but that was just,
Nausicaa was
still
just
classed
before.
as a Ghibli movie, isn't it?
It's in the Ghibli collection. So we'll go from Nausicaa.
So if you're a fan of Nausicaa and you want a shout out on the show, just give us your short reviews on Twitter, Facebook, wherever.
I obviously love Nausicaa, so that's fine. But you actually bought this.
I did.
As a youngster.
I did.
So it'll be good to revisit it.
It will. You, I think. So we'll give a shout out when we get the first episode out, once we've sat and watched.
Yeah, and I think Grave of Fireflies and My Neighbour Totoro released roughly the same time. So.
No, it wasn't My Neighbour Totoro then, was it? No, it wasn't. You're getting so confused. Even I know that.
No.
It wasn't My Neighbour Totoro.
Was it not?
No, it was something else in the same year. But anyway, we'll talk about that in the podcast.
Do you know when you've looked up stuff all the time, and I do love it, but I don't really look at when they was released.
And last thing, this is the last thing before we go into these amazing interviews. Kevin Smith has had a heart attack. To me, that is... He's a god of the geek world to me. But he's all right. He's back podcasting.
Good.
Go and check Fat Man on Batman, the podcast. It's a brilliant.
Oh yes, you've said about this one before. Yes,
really enjoy it, and obviously he's done so much directing work himself. But the way he talks about the industry with such passion, it'd be a shame for him to pop his clogs. So he's now on a. Don't shake your head. Don't. Well, he's a big guy, but he's on a health kick now. He says it himself. The podcast's called Fat Man on Batman, for goodness sake. Stop looking like I'm saying things wrong. Right, we're going to go to the interviews now, and then Nick is going to shout at me for some reason and tell me off for saying things. What have I said wrong?
Oh, God.
What have I said wrong?
Carry on.
Okay. Right, enjoy these. We'll see you on the other side.
Mike's Mutterings.
Hello and welcome again. I'm Mike Williams and these are my continued mutterings on all things comic. Recently, Ian and Nikki reminded me that the podcast has now been going a whole year, and that's always a big milestone for these kind of things. Doing these little sections for the programme has definitely pushed me to read more and explore new creators that I wouldn't normally have. It's been a real benefit to me personally. Very often I stick to writers or artists that I know, and unfortunately this means they get precedence over comic series that suddenly come out of the blue and get a really big buzz going around them. One such series was Monstrous by Marjorie Liu and artist Sana Takeda. Monstrous was released at the back end of 2015 and opened to a great reception. It was winning multiple Eisner Awards and in 2017 even won the Best Graphic Story Hugo Award. The world was telling me to read this, Neil Gaiman was telling me to read this, and even my partner Alison and my sister basically told me to read it. But for some reason I just kept putting it off. And all this despite the fact that the first 2 volumes were just sitting there on the coffee table, taunting me. This weekend I finally succumbed, and I picked up volume 1, which collected the comics 1 through 6. I was having a leisurely afternoon and had a bit of spare time, and I can normally devour a trade paperback quite quickly. But I was immediately blown away by Monstrous. I must have spent hours poring over the dense and rich story and looking through the artwork, and I worked my way through volume 2 without break. This was followed by a Googling session to see what issue had been released to date and when the collected volume 3 would hit the shelves. I couldn't believe I'd just been so blasé about the hype for this epic story, and the fact that I only now got on board. I'm sure for many of our listeners I'm preaching to the converted, but for those still untouched by the wonder of Monstrous, I promise not to give any spoilers, but hopefully be that final nail in the coffin that's needed to get you reading it. The series opens with a large, single defining image. It shows young Maker, naked, alone, and with a slave collar on. A brand is visible on her chest, her lower left arm is missing, and a whip is held under her chin. She's being auctioned off to the highest bidder, identified only by her race, arcanic. But she still strikes a defiant stance and expression. It's a bold first panel where both the image and the text pull you in. And as you read on, you understand how that perfect opener encapsulates the principal themes of this story: war, slavery, and racism. The story begins in the troubling times following a devastating war between the Arcanic, a magically gifted race with animal traits, and the humans, with the sorcerous cult of witch nuns at their centre, called the Comea. The origins of the war are unknown, though the poet-scholar race of the intelligent multi-tailed cats describe it as like a series of claw pricks that bled the cat slowly to death. The war ended on a truce, following the apocalyptic destruction wrought at the city of Constantine by an unknown weapon or force. And it's in this time of fragile peace that 17-year-old Maker allows herself to be captured by the Comea. She hopes to understand more about her past, lost memories, and her role in everything. And although arcanic, she closely resembles a human, but holds within her a deep and powerful force that she simply cannot control. The full story of Monstrous is extremely layered and complex. The characters on both sides of the ensuing conflict are all flawed, and commit atrocities both willingly and unwillingly. Forgotten histories and relationships become integral to character motivations, and the first volume builds up this fantastical world setting with its history of lost gods and mystical orders quite quickly, but not in an overwhelming way. The setting is beautifully realised, a very matriarchal world with a feel of the 1900s Asia, mixed with an Art Deco steampunk style. The Comea witch cult is at the centre of world events, slowly shaping events behind the scenes. They feel very much like the Bene Gesserit order from Frank Herbert's Dune Chronicles, mixed with a sort of Spanish Inquisition. The grim darkness of it all is very well done. I was utterly absorbed by this book, and I'm always intrigued about how writers and artists work together to create such a compelling world. Writer Marjorie Liu and artist Sana Takeda first worked together on Marvel's X-23. Now, I recognise Marjorie's name as she'd also pushed the astonishing X-Men storyline forward too. She'd left her work in lore to go full-time as both a comic writer and novelist. But after the Marvel work dried up, she began slowly forming the world and stories of Monstrous. A few years down the line, she invited Sana to lunch and proposed the script. Sana is a self-taught artist and crossed over from the gaming CGI world into comics. I loved the X-23 artwork and with its heavy manga feel, but I learnt that it was not the direction Marvel wanted to. And the reason I didn't connect Sana's work between X-23 and Monstrous is the huge step change in style and detail. Monstrous is one of the most awe-inspiring illustrated volumes you will find. The blend of manga style from the faces and the poses, the kaiju monstrosities, the way they're rendered, and just plain conventional Western or comic art. It's beautiful and it really does add to the whole otherworldly aesthetic. The city setting of Zamora is fully realised in all its intricate Art Deco architecture. The detail Sana shows in just the hair and costume design alone elevates the artwork above most of her peers. And when the action moves outside the city-state, we get to see that the landscapes are portrayed with the same attention to detail. On top of this, Sana provides some stunning colouring with a blended watercolour effect. Marjorie's background writing novels is evident in the quality of the script, with story elements revealed slowly. People, places and events are referred to long before the reader is given the complete picture. Monstrous most definitely required both the talents of Marjorie and Sana brought to the party to be as good as it is. I'm so glad I finally got around to picking this up, and my time was well rewarded. I'll try not to avoid commercial hits in the future. Likewise, I was slow getting into Saga for the same reasons. So, a year into the podcasting, and I'm glad that my reading habits are still evolving and take me to these new worlds. Thanks for listening.
So, Nikki's here.
Hello. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
She's put the correct prices first, not the children.
How are the kids?
They're fine. They're all set up now. They're on the computers playing.
Yeah, got to keep quiet. They know to keep quiet.
Yes, it's like, quiet for the next half an hour. Can we have our computers? Yes.
The digital teat.
Right, let's get straight into this now then.
Go for it.
In fact, we'll just add all the bits we've just been talking about. Let's just roll straight in. We like it. So, who is Leonard Sultana?
Okay, so this is a question I really should pass over to my mum. She can probably tell people better. But Leonard Sultana is a guy that's been a card-carrying nerd for pretty much as long as I could remember, drawing comics on bits of A4 pieces of paper when I was a nipper on the carpet, all the way through to doing what I do now, which is running a website about Comic-Cons, which is as nerdy as it gets, as inside baseball as I think you can find. But no, I read comics, I watch genre television and films. I'm not so much of a gamer, I'm not going to lie. I'm all fingers and thumbs. I tried first person shooter and ended up tripping. I think I ended up tripping over my own gun. So I ended, I just give up. I think the last proper game for me was Rescue on Fractalus on an old Atari 2600. So
I'm not old enough to know what that is.
Okay. Stop!
Shut up!
Now I really am showing my age. So thank you so much indeed for that. But no, that's pretty much me. I'm just a fun-loving nerd, I suppose.
So, what comics in particular are you into?
I'd say I'm all over the place. I mean, my reading was back in the day. It was the superheroes. It was your Green Lantern was one that I really got into. Justice League. I was huge into Justice League International, the Damascus and Maguire book. What else? Everything back from Beano and Dandy all the way through 2000 AD. Through Warrior, through Crisis. Crisis I was big into, which I know is kind of frowned upon by even the people who created it back then. Through the DC and Marvel stuff. Big DC as a kid, but developed into Marvel as I grew up. But nowadays it's more into pretty much anything and everything. Which celebrates the art, really, all about just really good storytelling in a sequential. Yeah, I'm the one that kind of will use the term sequential art. Reading graphic novels, of course, novellia. Of course.
Graphic novels, of course. Graphic novels is a term.
Yes. But when it comes,
I'm sensing a pipe and slippers now.
Maybe, but when I get into, my monthly floppies at the moment, it's the Marvel Star Wars stuff. Wildstorm for DC, I'm really enjoying. Really enjoyed Clean Room by Gail Simone for Image. I really enjoyed that while that run was going. What else am I reading at the moment? Vision is still my favourite comic for the last 10 years. It's just stunning. Pretty much anything that kind of catches my eye. Anything that's really pretty as well. I mean, I'm really getting into the Dark Crystal book.
Not tried that yet.
By Acaria. By Mr. Cy Spurrier, which is it's just the most gorgeous piece of comic I buy, which is just gorgeous. Mm-hmm. But yeah, anything and everything that just kind of really tells me a good story, I suppose.
Yeah. Before we go on to Comic Cons, which you're all about,
sure.
The movie scene at the minute. I want to talk. So I don't get a chance to talk much about the movie scene with people because it's more about the comics. But I think you're all encompassing. So let's talk movies for a minute.
Okay.
DC, what's going on? Can it be saved? Excluding Wonder Woman. Can it be saved?
Can it be saved in its current format? No, I don't think it can. Mm-hmm. It's all about building on a strong foundation, and this foundation was jelly from the start. The reason why Marvel worked, it was building on characters which nobody knew. Obviously, in comics they knew, but in the actual physics of the world, in the actual universe itself, nobody knew who Iron Man was. People knew who Tony Stark was, but no one knew. So they learnt why they were heroes. in the context of the universe. In Superman, or Man of Steel, the first time the human race found out about a alien living on the planet was a spaceship appearing in orbit, saying that there was a fugitive hiding amongst them, and at which point a city gets demolished. I'm sorry, but in a real-world situation, the human race would have Kal-El's head on a pike shortly after Man of Steel, or they would just go out of their way. So I think the thing about the DC universe in the cinematic terms, I mean, I think it all kind of sums up as well with the marketing for Justice League, which just basically turned around and said, here are your heroes. Yeah. At which point you turn around and go, in the context of the universe that you are portraying on screen, how do they know that these are heroes? You've got this monument up in Metropolis for this fallen Kryptonian. Why? Why is that there? At the end of the day, he leveled the city. It's stuff like that. I think the reason why Marvel has worked is they've spent their time developing this strong basis. And at the moment, I'm just not buying it for Justice League. Because no one if you actually just take it from the touchstone, which is the humans on the planet, and looking up to these people, why are we looking up to them? And at the end of the day, we don't know. And that's where I feel it falls down for me.
Yeah, so it's really sad considering how many, all the Batman films, well, not all the Batman films, but a good majority of the Batman films have just been superb. And then it just drops.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Yes, it is.
So
the reason why the Batman character worked in the context of the new DCU, or DCEU, as it's technically called, whatever, they established that this character had been there for a while and people had known what he was about and that he was a vigilante. So there was laws and physics to the universe. The rest of it, no one really knows. I mean, for example, the whole business at the beginning of Justice League, with Wonder Woman suddenly showing up to stop a terrorist attack. No one knows who this character is. No one knows who it is. So it's just this woman that's jumped through a skylight. Why, Anyway, that's generally my take on it.
I'd like to discuss that, but the point is, we've not even seen it because we can't be bothered.
That's terrible.
How bad is that? We just got to the point.
Yeah, we thought, no. Do you know what? No, I'm not going to.
It says a lot that it's only 4 films in and you can't be asked.
Yeah, we've gone and just seen. We paid money to see Black Panther at the cinema that we really don't really know much about as a character because we've not read those comics. Yeah, I've happily paid that knowing it was going to be a good film.
Yeah.
That worked on so many levels. Not only did it have a lot of cultural touchstones, but it looked great. The music was awesome. The characters were fantastic. And there were at least 3 women on screen that I would happily ditch my wife for. They were worried.
We have to edit that one out, yeah?
Not at all. I think there were a couple of women on screen I think my wife would ditch me for. They were just warrior queens, and it was just stuff you could really get your teeth around. It's just awesome.
I'd say the same thing, but she's sat right next to me.
So I can hit him from here.
Yeah, thankfully, mine is in another country. She's in Cardiff. She's gone home to visit family, so thankfully she's not within punchable range, so I'm all right.
So let's move on. Let's talk about the website then. Sure. So, An Englishman in San Diego.
Right.
Where did that come from? Where did that idea sprout?
I mean, the first time I went out to San Diego Comic-Con, it was actually a year of firsts because it was supposed to be a trip of a lifetime. It was our honeymoon. It was the first time we'd been to the States, first time we'd been to California, first time we'd been to San Diego. So it was just a year of firsts. And at that point, you could actually get your badge for San Diego Comic-Con, I think it was some like 5 months before. And the badges they hadn't sold out by the time even the convention had rolled around. So there was obviously demand for it. But I mean, like Sunday badges were still available. And to the point where I was walking through the sales pavilion, which is the large upstairs tented area in between all the convention halls upstairs. And I happened to have $200 in my back pocket as spending money, and I was walking past the badge sale desk, and I was going to catch up with my wife Caroline, who was in one of the panels, and I just tell you what, I'll just buy the badges for next year. I don't even know if we're going to be coming back, but and I bought the badges for next year, and it's just been every year that we've ended up going back. As for myself and the website, it started that around that first year, I was going on to forums and going onto the Facebook page for information. I was mining as much information as I possibly could. Going onto the Friends of Comic-Con forum, and so really kind of being a permanent presence, rather an irritant from across the pond, to the point where I was actually finding a lot of information pretty quickly ahead of many people that were also on the forums themselves. So I ended up being a little bit of a resource myself, to the point where I then started doing a video blog in 2012 called An Englishman in San Diego, which was sort of like talking about my road to preparing for that particular year's Comic-Con. And it's just kind of developed from there, to the point where I was getting information and posting it to every single site going, and then I thought, well, tell you what, if I just post it to a single website, then I don't have to share it everywhere. Of course, neglecting to realise that once you then share it to that website, you then have to share it everywhere anyway. So that kind of backfired on me. Fine. But it meant the creation of An Englishman in San Diego. It's kind of now developed to a point where it's now the home of the weekly YouTube live show that I do on a Sunday evening here in the UK, where we talk Comic-Cons. It's not just San Diego either. We talk about all conventions that are happening throughout the year, both here in the UK and in the US. And the best episodes are the ones where we get special guests on, either people who are running conventions or attending conventions, and also those where we have people have their smartphones and they're wandering around conventions and letting us see the exhibition floor and the cosplay and all the art that's on display, and those are the fun ones for me. But then obviously as we get closer and closer to July, it gets more and more focused towards San Diego, and it ends up being gets ramped up towards the big event and the big party in San Diego.
So what it is about San Diego that you like? What really jumps out?
Right. Well, I mean, it's the same as any convention here in the UK, I suppose. Convention culture now, it's turned into something where people are gathering, not necessarily... Well, they are gathering for the art, and they are gathering for the artists and the creatives and the writers and the filmmakers and all the things they can see ahead of time and all of that. But I'm finding that convention culture now, it's people who are in a kind of community celebrating being passionate about stuff in person. It's okay doing it on a forum or online and talking about stuff on Twitter, but actually when you're in the company of anything from several hundred people, which is a small convention here in the UK, to 180,000 plus at San Diego, it's a heady rush. It's to know that you are in a city which has been taken over, literally, by people who are as passionate about stuff as you are. And not necessarily the same stuff, but just the level of passion. I think that's the addictive thing. Also, it's just a really gorgeous city. There's nothing you could take away from San Diego. That it is. It's a beautiful city. It's great energy. Obviously, got that West Coast vibe to it. No, it's just and it's nice and sunny.
And sun.
It's sun. Yeah.
What's sun?
Well, this is very true. I mean, here in the UK right now, we could do with some sun, but but no, I mean. It's much the same way that you go to something like lakes. You go to lakes, and there's that really intense passion. But the thing I love about Lakes as a convention, as a festival, is it's almost like a fine sherry. It's really distilled. It's very distilled and very classy and very
with a cheese biscuit.
Yeah. But it's very intense. And because obviously it's very much dealing with almost like the fine art element of sequential art. So it's very much almost like it's like going to a. I'm trying to work out a really good way of putting it.
Basically saying we're upper class and posh up here. That's how it is. Us northern dudes.
Yes.
No.
I'm not saying that it's a cheap thing to do to go to Kendal. It's an expensive part of the world. But the great thing about it is you get world class talent there. And I think with the if you take it from San Diego, it's more a case of while you don't. You have all strands of creative talent there. It's just the sheer quantity. You are going to find something. And the great thing is that whatever you're into, games, manga, anything that you're passionate about, tabletop gaming, card collecting, whatever, you are going to find a corner of that city which is absolutely dedicated to you. I mean, last year, just down the hall of where you could actually get your merch, there was a pinball section, which was taking up one of the rooms, and it was rammed of several hundred people who were just into pinball games. And you're just walking by, and everyone's just, you could just feel it off the room. And you go round this, I'm sure you feel it when you go to a convention yourself. You feel it. You feel that energy. So that's why I get out of it.
How do you feel the UK scene compares to the San Diego? Is there anything that matches up even remotely?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's one or two. I mean, let's think. Lakes, absolutely. Thought Bubble is the closest I think I've found so far, especially with the format that it's taken on for 2017, 2018. Because the thing about San Diego is, like I say, it's no longer an event that just takes over San Diego Convention Center. It takes over San Diego in a huge way. Thought Bubble takes over Leeds. And my Fitbit demonstrated as much when I had a look at the numbers this time round. It was, you put your footfall in and you have those multiple rooms and tents. And I think Thought Bubble's the closest to the San Diego vibe at the moment. I mean, I've described Lakes as a very similar thing, but it's a village fete kind of equivalent to San Diego Comic-Con.
Well, yeah, you could fit Kendal into a tiny bit of San Diego. Let's be honest.
You get that sense of different rooms having different things, and you can just sort of bounce from place to place and get a hit wherever you go.
Yeah. No. So there's been a bit of a controversy recently about the Comic-Con name.
Yes.
What do you feel about that? What's your thoughts on that?
I can understand where San Diego have come from in a large proportion of their legal battles, especially with a couple of companies which have actually gone out of their way. I mean, the main reason what they talked about Salt Lake Comic-Con and took them to court is because at the end of the day, Salt Lake Comic-Con showed up in San Diego with a Comic-Con branded car and drove it around San Diego Comic-Con. That's going to confuse the branding. It's going to people are just going to go, Comic-Con. It's like, I think it's not so much now people are kind of understanding where the lines are drawn, but even 5-6 years ago when, say, New Zealand Comic-Con or a convention that's happening somewhere else which uses the Comic-Con name, you'd see messages going up on the Facebook page saying, right, so you're doing a convention here. And people do get confused with San Diego's branding, and that's what they're trying to protect. They, at the end of the day, they tried to copyright, and I think they succeeded in copywriting the Comic-Con name. So they have some kind of legal standing, but at the end of the day, it's the actual term Comic-Con. It's not theirs. It was first used by a New York convention. So that whole generic branding bit is going to be awkward at the end of the day. Sorry, I'm just checking I'm still there. Hello?
You're there?
Oh, just checking. Just my screen just refreshed. Sorry about that. So I can understand San Diego, CCI's legal standing, that they're wanting to protect their brand. But I think for a lot of conventions out there, they can't go after everybody.
No.
At the end of the day, it's too generic, and it's a shortening of a term, comic convention. I think, however, though, there are some people or some conventions out there that can actually then change it and change their name to something a little bit more individual, and that actually is in their benefit, because then they do stand out from the crowd. So you've got Long Beach Comic Expo, you've got Thought Bubble Sequential Art Festival, you've got Lakes Comic Art Festival. You've got these events that don't use Comic-Con in their title, and they don't need to anymore. I think people understand and recognise what the difference is nowadays.
Completely agree, and I think sometimes the Comic-Con is overused because you have some events that aren't up to standard in some ways.
Yes.
Certainly within the UK, there's some great big events,
absolutely,
and there's some great small events. But then there's some events that just pop up randomly that aren't that feel like they're just there to make money. And let's be honest, it's not about the culture. It's not about the comics. It's not about the TV, the movies. It is just purely.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that struggles. It opens the market up a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the reason why I'm really proud of tying my name to MCon, which is very much a pop culture show. It has a little bit of comics and some comic creators, but very, very little. Mostly because it takes a lot. Speaking to Lee Wallace, it takes a lot to curate a comics-led festival, and at the end of the day, the vast majority of the mainstream audience don't know who the creators are. They only know the characters. Yeah. So it's a very difficult thing to actually put on a comics part of a convention. So that's why when Lee asked me to host the panels for MCon, I was happy to do that. Also, the fact that he calls his event MCon. It's not a comic convention. He actually goes out of his way to say it. That's not what we're doing. Although then I go down to, for example, I went to Meanwhile Comic Convention, or Comic-Con, and I got invited to do the panels down there. That is a full-blown comic convention. And I'm happy to tie my name to that as well. So, yeah, there are events out there that just use the name generically. I mean, the whole business with the Repop taking on the MCM brand. MCM had gotten a lot of grief over the last 5-6 years for its emphasis on the film and television and pop culture side. And I'm hoping now that they've got a bit more money from the deal that they've done with MCon, or that MCon have bought out all the UK events, that they're going to expand the Comic Village area of it.
Yeah, that would be good to see.
I've sent emails. I've gone, come on, you've got an opportunity here. For example, there are some conventions that have fallen by the wayside. So London Super Comic-Con, I believe, is not happening next year. So you've got the London Comic-Con for MCM, which really could just take that and run with it. And you've got this opportunity, and I'm hoping that they do.
Excellent. So what are your plans this year other than San Diego? Where else do you think you're going to head this year?
It's down to funds. It really is. At the end of the day, one of the reasons as well that I started an Englishman in San Diego was I was hoping to get advertising revenue and sponsorship revenue, and the idea was that it would fund me to attend these conventions, report on them, and it turned into a little bit of a cyclical thing. But I'm not there yet. So the moment is all kind of coming out of my pocket. But, for example, I'm going to Walker Stalker this weekend, purely because I've never been to one. And
what's that? Where's that?
Yeah, no,
it's down in London. It is a pop culture event. It's based around the kind of Walking Dead like IPs. So you've got them, but also other, like supernatural actors showing up. Kind of like that kind of corner of the genre television, and it's the kind of place where you'd find Ash and the Evil Dead kind of cast members.
It's sort of the horror side of TV.
Yeah. So there's that, but I've never actually been to Walker Stalker before, and I've heard great things. So a friend of mine had a Sunday ticket available, so I'm going to be heading down to that very early on Sunday morning. Where else? I'm desperately hoping I can do Lakes again this year, because I missed it last year and it killed me.
Some of the names that are jumping out as well. It's like,
yes.
Yes. It's something else. It just absolutely killed me not going to Lakes last year. So I'm hoping that's going to be the case. We'll be attending a couple of the MCMs, including Birmingham and London. I'll be definitely doing Thought Bubble because that's my local con. That's literally the bus ride away. That I can, I can get to that in 10 minutes. So that's my handy one.
Yeah.
Jealous.
Yeah. We can't say anything.
No, we can't, can we? 10 minutes for us, the other side, isn't it? But yeah.
Yeah. Where else? Yeah. And then it's just San Diego. I mean, I keep getting invited to New York Comic Con because as part of the website and the podcast, I've gotten to know the guys from from Repop quite well. So Mike Armstrong and a couple of the boys and girls from that organisation, they've been on the show. And they do keep turning around and saying, right, are you coming over or what? What's going on? And I go, I've got no money and I can't.
I was going to say,
fly.
are you paying for it? That's the question.
That's the next question. Yeah, you let me host a panel? I'll come over on your dime. Yeah, that never works, unfortunately. But if I can raise, I mean, the great thing about New York Comic Con, because it's East Coast, you can get there in 5 hours. It doesn't cost that much. I know a couple of New York people, so I can kind of sit on couches or sleep on couches.
Yeah.
And instead of spending a week and a half in San Diego as a holiday, I could actually do New York Comic Con as kind of like a work trip. I know a number of creatives that go to New York Comic Con purely because it's just so simple to get to. And they don't go to San Diego because it's 13, 14, 15 hours on a plane and it's a nightmare. So, yeah, you can understand why New York Comic Con is as popular as it is.
We need to go to New York. We need to go to all these places.
I know.
Is that when we win the lottery?
Yes.
Yeah, well, trust me, there's... I keep looking at the Euro Millions, and when it gets up to 130, 140, decent money. Not the small change. Some decent cash.
So you can buy your little flat in San Diego, then it's not an issue. Just pop over there when you want.
Absolutely. Yeah, the Tesla Model X downstairs on charge. Yeah. But, I mean, which cons are you intending to do? I mean, obviously, Lakes is...
Lakes, obviously. It's Thought Bubble.
It's in the title, kids.
Yes.
But where else are you?
Yeah, so Thought Bubble, it'll be our first time. We're going to go this year.
Yes.
MacPow in Macclesfield, which is a small one coming up.
Yeah.
We did MCM Liverpool last year, but they've stopped that now.
Yes.
So I think the Manchester one, maybe, depending on when that is, and I need to have a look at that.
Yeah.
Well, I know that Liverpool, there is a Liverpool Comic Con, because I'm actually quite happy about this. That while MCM have pulled out and have decided to focus on Manchester and London and Birmingham, it's left these voids for small independent convention organisers to go in and go, well, there's still an audience out there. There's still people that want to go to these events. So we'll do one. So I know that there is a Liverpool Comic Con. Admittedly, they are actually going full out and calling it Liverpool Comic Con. There's jumping straight back into that particular fire. But no, I mean, it's gone. The one thing that I do equate the UK convention landscape to the American one is in America, even in the quiet, lean periods, every single weekend there is a convention somewhere. I mean, it's obviously a big enough country that there's something happening somewhere. It's getting that way here in the UK. And when, I mean, I'm based in between Leeds and Bradford. And when Halifax has its own Comic-Con, when Wakefield has its own Comic-Con, you know that there's just enough of these events going on and there's somewhere to go. So yeah, there's enough distractions out there.
Yeah, very true. So, if people want to find out more about the San Diego Comic Con, where do they go?
Well, first things first, they would go to an Englishmaninsandiego.com.
Of course.
Where I'm doing my best. I mean, the one thing that I'm trying to do now is actually shift the focus of the site to be a general conventions hub.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm taking as my model very much UK Comic Cons, which is a great website, but the guy who runs that is kind of stepping away from it. So there's all that resource there. I'd love to just kind of grab all of that and just fold it into my site. But I'm trying my best to update convention calendars and signing calendars and all that stuff. So an Englishmaninsandiego.com. If you want to know generally or keep up to date generally with San Diego Comic Con, you've got comic-con.org, which is obviously the homepage of the actual convention itself. You've got Friends of CCI, or Friends of Comic-Con, which is a forum. I call it the Wikipedia of San Diego Comic-Con and conventions. It's Alyssa Franks that's put that together, and it really is just as comprehensive as it gets. You've got the SDCC blog, which is the unofficial blog, which is probably the largest fan site for San Diego Comic-Con. And there's plenty of resources out there.
Yeah.
I think where we as fan sites come at it is that we aren't beholden to Comic-Con International, so we will get into the nitty-gritty and actually kind of really criticize and look at it objectively and really go out of our way to help anyone who comes to our sites have a good time and enjoy and get the most out of this huge thing, because it's very easy to get lost in this massive melee of San Diego Comic-Con. So it's a case of getting advice and help where you can, and that's where we come in.
And also check out your YouTube channel and podcast, as you mentioned earlier on as well.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, if you basically search for an Englishman in San Diego, or if you search for Englishman SDCC, that's where you can find us. And yeah, the live YouTube show, which we do 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. GMT. Apart from this weekend, because they've got putting their clocks back. So yeah, that's the one that really kind of buggers me up. So yeah, but yeah, if you search for A Cup of Tea with an Englishman in San Diego, we're on YouTube, and that's what we do.
Excellent, thank you very much.
So there we go.
Room for one lawgiver, please.
Judge Dredd. Or is it just Dredd? Fancy seeing you here.
Catwoman, you also here for the Comic Art Festival, or a stint in the ISO cubes?
Of course. I love to see my makers in action. Watch it, Greenie.
Careful, Hulk. In this town we have a saying. Once is a coincidence, twice is a booking offence.
I think he booked the events on the website.
Huh?
comicartfestival.com. It's got all the perfect information about the event.
Yeah, so's my fist. Druck, I'm out of here. Not standing around with those 4 tortoises that have just entered the building. Cowabunga, dude!
Find out all about the Lakes International Comic Art Festival and booking information at www.comicartfestival.com.
The first year, Andrew and I, Julie invited Andrew and I out.
Yeah.
Because they were doing the festival, and they'd actually kind of patterned LICAF a little bit after TCAF, and a little bit after Angoulême, and a little bit after sort of, a smaller festival taking over a town. And so we've been honestly just helping out ever since, seeing how things are running and, pushing them to do different things, and it's been great, yeah. The capper was the announcement last night that they've gone to the national portfolio for the Arts Council funding, where they just announced it last night. That's 4 years of really good
funding.
Which is amazing to know that the festival's going to continue. Knowing that, you get to plan so much longer in advance. It makes it easier to do bigger projects and to have sort of dig in a little bit, and you get to commit to your partners for longer too.
The books they can bring out though as well, the artists that can help and create the books from within that. It's brilliant. So we've already started. So we'll introduce you guys. We got Chris and Andrew from the Toronto Comic Art Festival. Thank you very much for coming and having a chat with us.
Thanks for having us.
So it was meant to be just Chris, but we've got Andrew as well. So we've got double the fun and double the information from the festival from over there. First of all, who is Chris and Andrew? Who are you guys?
We ask everyone.
My name's Christopher Butcher. I'm the festival director, or I'm the artistic director of TCAF, and one of the co-founders. And we've been doing TCAF since 2003. I founded it with Peter Berkemo, who runs The Beguiling, which is sort of a renowned comic book store that's located in Toronto.
Okay.
Where I was traveling a lot to go to shows, and I was really bummed, honestly, that we didn't have anything good in our own town, because we had such an amazing wealth of talent. And I pressed for him to start a show here, and he didn't want to do it. He said, "You do it, and I'll pay for it." It's great. So
and here we are.
on the other side of the world, 15 years later. It's really great. Actually, it was about now too. It was like October 2012, I think we decided to do it, and then we put it on in March 2013. So 5 months for the first one.
2002.
Oh, sorry, 2002, and then
skipped
2003.
a decade.
Yeah, sorry. October 2002, we decided to do it. And then March 2003, we actually did the first one. So we planned it in about 5 months.
So it's been going on for
15 years.
15 years.
Yeah, this is our 15th anniversary this year.
Blooming heck.
2018.
You must have seen the development of Comic Cons over that time as well.
Yeah,
change.
It's really been interesting, especially I know in the UK things a couple of years ago had gotten to the point where there was a lot of shows, a lot of people were diving in, and there was some a little bit of rumbling, especially up north. I think in Scotland there was more so than here, but in the US now there's a show. It's not just that there's a show every weekend. There's 3.
Really?
So deciding which show to go to as there's so many issues that have come up with cartoonists, with retailers, with exhibitors, with the shows themselves. So for us, it's just, why are you trying to do the show? And then we tend to ally ourselves with people that want to do shows that support local communities. Like, our show's free to the public, so we pushed. I think especially after the first year, there's a lot of programming in Lakes that is free to the public to attend, and prices have come down year over year, which is great. So we're still nudging the guys for that, but it's also a very different economy here than it is at home. Although the beer's cheap, that's nice.
Well, as we found out here, in Wetherspoons, all the UK listeners know Wetherspoons very well.
And who are you and what do you do?
Yes.
Well, my name is Andrew Woodrow Butcher. I do programming for the Toronto Comic Arts Festival, mostly the kids programming, professional development programming for teachers and librarians who want to work with comics in classrooms and libraries. And I also work on a lot of our special programs, such as coming to the UK, developing exchanges with overseas festivals, that sort of thing. And I am a bookseller. I'm a career bookseller. I've been a bookseller my whole adult life. And only the last decade or so looking at comics. So really, I started as a kids bookseller. So that's sort of where I come from.
So,
the mix.
In regards to dealing with schools and stuff, how in Canada do comics fit in with the whole curriculum and children? Because in the UK, essentially, they don't.
Yes, well, which is what we want to change.
We want to change,
yeah. I think there's been a huge change in the last 10, 15 years as some librarians have retired and new librarians have come up, but also as there's been such a huge boom in graphic novel publishing for young people. Yeah. So, I also was the manager of the world's only kids comic store, so kids only comic store for 5 years, which was called Little Island Comics. And that store, which we opened 6 years ago, You couldn't have opened that store 16 years ago. There wasn't enough material.
No.
But there's been such a boom in graphic novel publishing for kids, and teachers and librarians know that. They aren't necessarily caught up, all of them, on the reading, but they definitely know something's happening in comics and that they should be getting on board.
Yeah.
And they are. But it's a process, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's learning
learning
how to integrate these things. Even people who love the material and want to do it, there's still a gap in the professional skills building.
But you want to meet the people that are excited about it. You know what I mean? Like, and that goes for the festival stuff as well. Like when we sit down to a meeting with someone that we've never worked before, we can tell right away. These are people that are excited about what we're doing, and even if they're not 100% on all the details, they see the value in it in a macro kind of a way, and we just got to work out the details and move forward. But then you meet people who are just like, coming to a meeting with their arms crossed, and you can read right away.
Yeah.
And so, path of least resistance. Work with the people that want to be worked with and want to do good things, I think.
So what sort of challenges do you face when you're setting up the festival itself? What each year, is there any particular things that jump out?
Our festival?
Yeah.
Our own ambition is probably our biggest problem, frankly.
Yeah.
We want to do the world and a bit every single year.
Yeah.
And that's tough. That's really, really hard, is knowing what your limitations are. And it's something I'm particularly bad at. I just keep going like, what if we did this?
And we have
and everyone around me is just, Jesus Christ. Like, yeah, of course it's a good idea to do it, but who's going to do it? And that's a big issue.
We have lots of great partners, and our biggest partner is the Toronto Public Library. Our festival is held in the flagship branch of Toronto Public Library, where we fit 400 cartoonists somehow every year exhibiting. It is a lot, and the building just doesn't get bigger. It doesn't matter how big the festival gets, that building doesn't get bigger. So learning how to find more partners and expand the idea of what the festival is has been a big learning curve for us.
Yeah, the nicest thing, it's interesting too, traveling, because we'll go to a lot of places, and when you're in a Toronto or a Tokyo or New York or whatever, you can do whatever you want to, because the infrastructure is there to support a massive flood of people coming into your city. But going into smaller towns like Erlangen or like Angoulême or like, Kendal, it's...
especially like Kendal, yeah.
Yeah, there's the infrastructure... Certainly in the first year, people were a little bit skeptical about working with the festival, but now aren't as much. So there's more bed and breakfasts available. There's more smaller inns and hotels, and the Shakespeare pub that we were just at, actually, they're working, I think, officially with the festival for the first time this year, 5 years in. So that kind of longevity is the key to, I think, overcoming that particular infrastructure issue, and showing people you're going to be around.
There's something really amazing, though, about the smaller town festival that we in Toronto could never do. So it doesn't matter how big the Toronto Comic Arts Festival becomes, it's a giant city, and when you leave that neighborhood, you aren't going to know that it's happening. Yeah. Probably, like you might know from the newspaper, but you won't see it. Whereas in a town like Kendal, you can feel it all over the town. You can see the banners. You can see the participants are here, and that's such a great feeling to come to a town that's been taken over by a comics festival for a weekend. It's wonderful.
And TIFF, so we have the film festival, Toronto International Film Festival, which is kind of famous now, which is weird because it didn't used to be the same thing. But they're fully 20 times our size, by metrics, and that's still something where, unless you're trying to book a hotel in the city that weekend, which you can, it's just expensive as opposed to, very expensive as opposed to you can't book a hotel at all. But you can, where the festival's happening, down on King Street and up along, it's busy and it's crowded and there's people and there's lots of energy and excitement. And then you can go to the Annex and it's like nothing's happening at all. So even the city, a festival that's 20 times our size, looking at where we want to grow and what we want to do, it's still a drop in the bucket for a city of 3 million people. And that's something that I think is one of the strengths of doing a small town show like this, is really taking over the town and really getting the town on board.
Which it seems to do so much. So looking at your Twitter, Chris, it states you're a consulting editor for Viz Media.
Yeah, that's a new one.
What's involved with that then? What's that role?
Still learning. I just started June 1st. So I was at the Beguiling, the comic book store that was co-sponsor of TCAF. I actually joined after the festival started because one of their full-timers left, and they just needed someone to fill in, and I'd worked at comic book stores before. And done that for 15 years, 14 years. And I really was just ready for a change. And so Viz Media is a manga publisher, primarily North America, but I think they do a lot of stuff here too.
I think we do have
the UK editions.
You know.
Yeah.
We were just chatting, and they asked if I would ever consider leaving the Beguiling, and I was just like, oh, I hadn't really even thought about that, but sure, let's talk about that. And here I am. So right now, my travel last year was going around the world, doing stuff for the festival, doing stuff for the store, and this year I've probably traveled already twice as much as I did the whole last year, and since June, which is crazy, but it's great. So I'm in Tokyo all the time, taking meetings with people that we want to work with, and also finding exciting new manga in Japanese.
There's so much to find, let's be honest.
It's really great, and we're going to try and build some stuff for the future years too, because I come at publishing manga from the perspective of, independent. Not independent is such a weird word. Indie is such a weird word, but like graphic novels where the creators actually create them as opposed to the corporations creating them, and then the creators come and work on them. That's a very different way of looking at comics for a lot of people. And manga, I think, is that way in Japan, but in North America, it's all just licenses. It's taking something that exists and bringing it over. Yeah. So we want to do something that's a little that melds the two, that uses my unique background and the people that I work with and talk to, and maybe see if we can't make some interesting North American manga, some interesting world manga, I guess. Because the UK has such incredibly talented creators. There's no reason not to say we're only going to work with people in America or Canada. So yeah, it's exciting. So
what is it about Japan you particularly like? 'Cause you seem to spend a lot of time over there. Is there anything that stands out that you really enjoy?
I really actually just fell in love with it when I was a kid. It was it probably is impolitic to say, but it just seemed so much of the future. When I was 8 years old, I was first exposed to the idea of Japan in a video game magazine. Actually, I was just in the local corner store, and I saw a video game magazine that said that there were in Japan, and I know now that it was they'd gone to a Japanese video game show and found out all the new stuff that was coming out the next year and put out articles and stuff. But to me, you read this and you're like, Japan, I'm playing Super Mario Brothers 3, and they've got Super Mario Brothers 4.
Yeah.
Japan, they've got a video game system that you crawl inside into, and you're flying a mecha that like rotates 360 degrees, which is one of the new things that year. Japan just seemed like the future, and who, as a child especially, who loved comics and games and things like that, who didn't want to live in the future? And so, because of that, for the longest time, it just seemed kind of untouchable. Like, how do you get to the future?
You get on a plane.
No, it's just a place. You just get on a plane and go. But it had gotten too big in my head, and it was just too much, and it was whatever. And so after I got married to Andrew here, he got sick of me. He just got sick of me talking about it. And like, why don't we just go to Japan? And I was like, is that a thing people can? I didn't really think that it was a thing people could do, but we did. We just booked tickets and went, and we had friends living there, which helped a lot. For the first couple times that we visited, and some people get off the plane. I was greeted with a true horror story. So I had friends that went and did exchange when they were 16 in Japan. They went and did a year of schooling in Japan and came back. True horror story where it was those two and two other people went on the exchange program, the JET exchange program. And the two people they were with got off the plane and took one look at an airport where there wasn't English language signage, for example. And flipped out. And they literally got back on the next plane to Toronto.
Like severe acute culture shock.
Canceled their trips and everything.
You kind of know what you're going to get. Sure.
And this is like 25 years ago.
Right, okay.
And they're 16-year-olds away from home for the first time. But Japan is the kind of country where the enormity of it could probably force you back onto a plane really quickly if you weren't prepared for it. And they clearly weren't. I didn't encounter that. I encountered the opposite. It was delightful to be in an airport that had almost no English signage.
It has lots of English signage now.
That's the other thing too.
Go to Japan, you'll be fine. You don't need to speak Japanese.
We're not the cultural tourism board. Do your research. But it's a different place now. There's more foreign tourists. They've had an Olympics since then in Nagano. They're going to have another one in 2020, which everyone's terrified of that actually lives there, because the Olympics don't come to town and do great things usually. Anyway, as Londoners may know. It's a really different place now. But you fell in love, and the cartooning as well. Like, it just seemed like the promised land where you could do a comic and live on it. Even if you were a poor seller, even if you're doing something that was really strictly indie, you'd still sell 5,000 copies of your book, which is pretty good. It's all right. Like, you can afford your rent. You know what I mean? Maybe not raise a family, but for an artist. And there's a social safety net there too, where there is nationalized health care and there is unemployment insurance and all that kind of stuff. So that even if things weren't going well, you're still not going to be out on the street as an artist, which is another big one. Which is, keep. Good luck, UK. I hope things stay as strong as they do.
Yes. Going to Japan.
I wouldn't complain.
No, me neither.
So yeah, it's a really complicated answer. I'm sorry, I probably should have just soundbited you on that one, but no. And more and more, the more I learn, the more I realize there's to learn. The more people I meet, the more I realize that I want to meet people from Japan, and then meet people again that want to work with us. Like invite people to come to Toronto and share their cartooning expertise and their knowledge with Canadian cartoonists and with Canadian public, out in the public from around the world, obviously, that comes to the show, and create those connections. That's the best. That's the other great thing about Comic Cons is like, it serves the public. It's so great that there's people from all around the world here in Kendall this weekend that people from Kendall get to encounter and experience and understand their work, and I think that's awesome. But those cartoonists get to meet each other. It's such a big thing. Like facilitating those sort of connections is huge. It's awesome.
So I've been Twitter stalking. So I'm off.
Yeah.
I noticed.
I'm glad I'm a surprise guest now.
I noticed you put down about the issue at the minute with Marvel Comics losing sales and affecting comic shops. Where do you see sort of the future of the comic scene and the comic shops in general in particular? And how are we going to sort of improve this in a way? Because I can see it being an issue as we go down the line.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
I was in New York Comic Con last weekend. I was talking almost exclusively about this, exclusively off the record. So I'm going to have to give you my more practiced answer.
Yeah, that's fine.
I want comic shops to be there. I truly believe that comic specialty retail is the best way to get the widest variety of material in a physical form to people. I think it's better than digital delivery in a lot of ways. If you want to have a physical comic, I think it's better than Amazon in many, many ways.
And it's better than the general bookstore at doing comics.
Yes. Yeah.
Or can be.
Should be. That's the point.
And that's not to take anything away from people that are doing their work online or are distributing, directly via the internet, because comic shops are also not a welcoming place sometimes and are not great. It's 2,500, I think, shops around the world at this point, each run by an independent business person who's as pig-headed as the next one, including my own bosses, and they know that. But because of that, you can actually work with individual people and actually do some pretty great things. But the problem is that when you've got to work with everybody all at once, like Diamond does or like Marvel does, you get a lowest common denominator things that the most number of stores pick up your work. And I think that's where we are now, where work that is at the fringes is really, it's an inhospitable environment for it, comic book shops for the most part, unless you hit those stores that are the good stores. I want that to continue. But I do think that there are huge infrastructure problems that we are going to face probably in a real serious way starting in December this year. And then the first 6 months of 2018 are going to be a real time of change. As I think Warren Ellis coined it 15 years ago, it's going to be a weird 2018 for comic book shops, and I hope everyone weathers the storm okay. But Marvel really is, like I was saying, Marvel's the engine that drives. You get 2,500 shops and like 1,600 of them probably aren't stocking much outside of Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, and Image, and aren't stocking really much outside of Marvel and DC. If Marvel goes down and takes a bunch of those shops with them, what happens to the rest of those shops that rely on those delivery mechanisms?
And what happens to the one or two things that are not those mainstream books that those shops are delivering to the public? Right?
But they're the ones, that's what the shops should be selling. That's what they're good at, or they should be good at doing, is those indie books.
Exactly.
Yeah. So... And it's and I'll be honest, it's sort of a difficult position because that information about the Marvel stuff came out at exactly the same time in the lead up to New York Comic Con that said that Viz, who I now work with, is 23% of the direct market, or 24% of the bookstore market, but in the direct market is non-existent. So it shows you that when people are going into bookstores and the bookstores are well stocked because Viz has a great sales team, what people actually choose versus what they don't choose. Image does does even better there than they do in the direct market in a lot of cases. So for me to then comment on anything in a real pointed way does smack of talking trash about the competition. So I'm trying to avoid that as much as I can. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough out there as someone who was in comic book retail for 20 years to look at it and go to see the problems that are there now and that are coming. I want to be hopeful. I want to believe that these things can be overcome, but it's going to be tough.
So last thing, chance to give a plug to the Toronto Coming Out Festival. When's it on? And any particular named guests you want to give a shout out to?
Well, TCAF 2018 is May 12th and 13th of 2018. We are arguing about what the actual day is because we all think it's a different day.
I've got down 13th and 14th on the
I think
website.
it's the 13th and 14th.
I think the website is wrong.
I'm looking at my calendar right now.
And it is the 12th
12th
and 13th.
You're right.
So the website's wrong.
The website's wrong. You know, the website.
Someone will fix it, I'm sure.
And so on the 11th, the festival also has its gala Friday night opening, as well as our professional programs for teachers, librarians, and cartoonists.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on with the festival this year. Unfortunately, none of it is announced or even confirmed, to be completely honest. We do a lot of handshakes with people, and then when the time comes to announce, we make sure everyone's on board and buy plane tickets and things. So October's a bit early for us, but I think early December we're going to announce our guest lists and things like that. But yeah, it's going to be a good year. We've already locked down a bunch of people.
And what we can say is that there will be more than 400 cartoonists exhibiting their works in a beautiful public building. It's a free festival for the public to attend. Pretty much all of our programs are also free. There's lots going on, and you won't be disappointed if you make your way to Toronto.
Yeah.
There will be things for you to do, and you'll enjoy them.
And the website for that is?
Toronto Comics, with a plural, .com. Yeah, and you can just find us as @Toronto Comics on Instagram, Twitter, wherever there are things. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Chris and Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Cheers now.
How do? Welcome to Breakdowns, the comic art section of the podcast. I'm Pete Taylor. I'm a small press comics creator and illustrator. Online I trade as This Man, This Pete. And the favourite things I've drawn since last episode are gorillas. Lots and lots of gorillas. Back to Jack. We left him just as the comics industry had been hit by the bombshell that was Seduction of the Innocent, the largely fabricated comics-bashing book by Frederick Wortham, and the following Senate subcommittee investigation. This led to the breakup of Joe Simon and Jack Kirby's professional and highly successful partnership. 1955, and Jack now returns to freelancing in a much altered marketplace. The comics industry was facing pressure from the new growing threat of TV ownership, which was stealing the attention of their readers. And now that distributors refused to carry non-code approved books, the number of titles plummeted from 650 to 250 between 1954 and 1956. Jack tried a few new avenues of work: commercial illustration, cover work, and writing paperback novels, but they didn't work out. He had plenty of ideas for new comic projects, but he wasn't a pitch man. He had an odd way of speaking and tended to ramble around an idea a lot. Even his wife Roz didn't understand the ideas or concepts he was trying to get across. There was one place left. Jack had to swallow his pride and approach Timely Comics, now rebranded as Atlas, but still under the ownership of Martin Goodman, he who had swindled Simon and Kirby out of profits due for Captain America, and Jack didn't want him to think he was forgiven. Plus, Kirby had left the company as art director, and if he returned, he would have to work under his former office boy, Stan Lee. Still, Atlas published a lot of comics across many different genres and had plenty of work, and that was something he desperately needed. So, September of 1956 saw a story called Minefield, illustrated by Kirby, published in Battleground number 14. This was followed with work on The Black Rider and Yellow Claw. As well as drawing the pages, Jack now took charge of a lot of the writing of these series too. Writers were often supplied with plots by Kirby, and he sometimes rewrote whatever was handed in. Nothing seemed to stick though, and much to Kirby's frustration, the series were all short-lived. Jack kept trying the other publishers though, and managed to land another project at DC, Challengers of the Unknown, debuted in Showcase number 6 in February of 1957. It's not clear who devised the series alongside Jack. Various sources cite writers Joe Simon or Dave Wood as co-creators, and others say it was just Kirby. Challengers was a story about 4 daredevil adventurers with their own areas of expertise. Pilot Ace Morgan, Professor Haley, General Comic Book Scientist, wrestler Rocky Davis, and Red Ryan, Stuntman. After surviving a plane crash together, they decided they were all living on borrowed time and formed a team to investigate all manner of mysteries, including monsters, robots, and aliens. You name it, they faced it. Challengers was a big enough hit to become a bi-monthly title and gain Kirby more work across other books at DC, including Green Arrow and some of their Ghost mystery line, where he would also occasionally write the tales too. But, and there's always a but sooner or later, DC's production department had a problem with Kirby's art and demanded that he strip out all of the elements which gave his work power and energy. They wanted a house style, showing Jack other books from their line and telling him to make it look like this. Kirby couldn't understand. The books they wanted him to emulate weren't selling well. He had confidence in his abilities at this time and a proven track record of sales. This didn't seem to matter to the publisher, as Jack's name didn't appear inside a single DC book of this period. Still, at least Jack had the semi-regular work from Stan Lee over at Atlas. Well, that was until mid-1957, when Atlas hit a major obstacle that nearly made them shut their doors for good. The economic downturn caused Atlas's distributor to fold and forced Goodman into a curious position. To carry on getting his books to newsstands, he had to use independent news, which was a part of DC Comics. Jack Leibowitz, head of DC, saw this as an opportunity to put a leash on his rival. Goodman had a reputation for flooding the market with copies and rip-offs of successful titles, and this in turn could hurt the marketplace itself. Under the new agreement, Atlas, who previously produced up to 75 titles a month, were now limited to just 8. Ever inventive, Goodman and Lee turned that into 16 bi-monthly books, but this still meant a drastic reduction of work available to freelancers such as Kirby. Then, Goodman discovered Stan Lee had a cupboard full of unused art and scripts. This inventory of previously paid-for work meant Lee was forbidden to create new material until this stockpile was used up. Everyone in the office except Stan was let go, and freelance work dried up at the company for the foreseeable future. Dubbed the Atlas Implosion, it was very nearly the end of the company that was yet to become Marvel Comics. Then a break in the clouds. In early 1958, Jack had the chance to work on a syndicated newspaper strip of his own. A syndicate dealmaker named Harry Elmlark approached Jack Schiff, then Kirby's editor on Challengers, and wanted Schiff to assemble a team that could produce a space strip, a more up-to-date version of Flash Gordon. Space and sci-fi were a big deal, and manned space exploration was known to be on the horizon. And Jack and Dave Wood just happened to have been developing a strip that, with a little tweaking, was just what Elmlark was after. This was something Kirby had dreamed of for a long time, his very own newspaper strip, and a science fiction story to boot, the genre that first pulled Kirby into storytelling. Named Sky Masters of the Space Force, Elmlark got the strip placed with the syndicate, and Jack was overjoyed. For a short time, anyway. When the terms of the deal were being worked out, it started to look less attractive. A lot less attractive. When paid from the syndicate, Elmlark would get his cut first. There wouldn't have been a deal without him. Then Kirby and Dave Wood would split the rest, but all of the expenses such as inking, lettering and production costs came out of their share too. It wasn't shaping up to be a good deal for the team. And then Schiff wanted a cut from the front end as well. Kirby's gangster sense started tingling. He faced up to bullies and briberies before, and he wanted to confront Schiff and refuse his payment. But Wood was worried this would affect their work at DC, which they were both dependent on. And so Jack went along with Schiff's demands. Kirby remained unhappy though. He was putting the most hours into the strip and getting more upset with what he was going to make from it. That aside, Sky Masters looked exquisite, not least because Dave Wood had the great idea of getting Wally Wood, no relation, to ink the work. A stalwart of the EC Comics sci-fi titles, Wally brought a gravitas to the strip that took it to another level. But, and there it is again, there was trouble on the horizon, and shortly before launch, Schiff decided that he deserved a bigger cut. Jack couldn't hold himself back this time, and exploded. No way was he going to pay Schiff anything. Kirby had been putting all the work in. Schiff exploded back and decreed that Jack was no longer drawing Challengers of the Unknown, Green Arrow, or any other book at DC for that matter. Kirby was out. Jack was in dire straits financially, but luckily 2 past contacts resurfaced. Stan Lee phoned and told him the inventory had been used up and freelance work was needed again, and then Kirby bumped into Joe Simon, who had a couple of projects available at Archie Comics. Simon and Kirby worked up the first 2 issues of The Double Life of Private Strong and Adventures of the Fly. But the old Simon and Kirby magic was lacking, and that's all that came out of their renewed partnership. Meanwhile, Jack Schiff sued for breach of contract over the Sky Masters strip, and the court case did not go well for Kirby. A combination of bad legal advice and a poor performance on the stand meant Jack lost the suit and was ordered to pay Schiff a settlement and continuing commissions on the underperforming strip. It was money the Kirby household could ill afford to lose. There was no hope of future work at DC now, and few options for Jack other than returning full-time to Atlas, and, as he later put it, getting shipwrecked at Marvel. When Mike Sekowsky, one of DC's star artists of the time, was asked years later who'd won the Schiff-Kirby lawsuit, Sekowsky replied, Stan Lee. Okay, we're nearly there, folks. Please join me next time as we leave the Golden Age, move into the Silver Age of comics, and follow Jack into the most creative period of his incredible career. Thanks to the following reference materials for their invaluable help in creating this profile: Kirby, King of Comics by Mark Evanier, published by Abrams; The Jack Kirby Collector from Tomorrow's Publishing; the Kirby Museum website at kirbymuseum.org; and Fred Van Lent and Ryan Dunleavy's Comic Book History of Comics from IDW Publishing. You can find me at thismanthispete on Instagram and Twitter. Email me at thismanthispete@gmail.com. My comics are available at thispete.bigcartel.com. And all of this information is on my website at thismanthispete.com.
Okay, so the Lakes International Comic Art Festival 2018.
Update.
As we announced, their tickets are now on sale.
Yes, get the tickets,
Go get the tickets. So 12th to the 14th of October 2018. So the first set of guests.
Go on. Lay it on me.
I apologise.
Oh, God.
For saying names wrong. First one, we got Yomi again from the Clockwork Orange, but he's coming back this time.
Yes.
As a guest as opposed to in the Clock Tower.
As an exhibitor, yeah.
He's
Oh, I'm really excited about this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, this isn't official, but it is. Well, it's not sort of been announced that he's going to do, because he talked about when he was on the interview about his transmedia storytelling and the way they get actors and so forth in to talk about it. It's just been announced that he's going. However, he's shouted out that he's going to be bringing this crew or whatever is coming up here. So that, I didn't think it would happen, but I'm looking forward to it.
He's such a charismatic person. It's going to be brilliant.
So that is happening. So I'm not sure where it's going to be, how it's going to take place, but I'm looking forward to to seeing that.
Yeah.
Then we got Ottilie Hainsworth, who did the Talking to Gina book that we reviewed.
Yep.
She's coming up. We got Creeper Joshi, who hails from Nepal. Rain Hughes. Someone called Ian Rankin.
Oh, I wonder who he could be.
Who's Ian Rankin? Ian Ranking's coming.
Oh, I'm so excited.
As we said, he was involved. He's creating a comic with Sean and a bunch of others. But he's coming up to the festival, which is amazing.
Very excited.
Even if it's only a couple of minutes, we want to get a few minutes to have a little chat with him.
I'll just be a puddle.
The other big name, John Wagner.
Oh.
One half of the creator of Judge Dredd.
Yes.
And many other 2000 AD characters. And many other characters worldwide. But, he's coming back. It's his first time back since the first festival.
I say since you saw him.
Since he came to see me in my shop, personally. Other names we've got, I apologise, Kay Salika from Finland. Don't look at me like that. Victoria Lamasco from Russia.
Yeah.
Mick Eco, who did a video last year with Wacom.
We saw that. Yeah.
So have a look at that. We got Arijit Sen from India. You got Guy Delisle, who we spoke about last time.
Yes.
So really interesting to speak to him about his books and his travels, because he's done so many others.
Yes.
Travel comics, and really interested to see that.
Yeah, but that North Korea one was amazing.
Mm-hmm. I'd love just to sit with a drink with him and just ask some questions about North Korea.
But he's like, not again.
I've done so much other stuff. And Seth from Canada. Mm-hmm. And then 2 US guests, Joe Kelly, writer, who wrote I Kill Giants, which is obviously about to come out.
Oh,
as a
that's
huge movie.
Film, yeah.
So that'll be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And Elizabeth Breitweiser. Now, Elizabeth Breitweiser is a colourist for Kill or Be Killed and all of the other books that Sean. Does this mean Brubaker could come?
What you mean? We'll get amazing. The Holy Trinity.
That would be amazing. I cannot wait to hear more guests. If that was to happen, I want all 3 of them. I want all 3 of them, and I want to chat into all 3 of them. I want interviews with all 3 of them in the room. Then again, it might not happen, so we'll have 2 of them.
We'll have 2 of them in the room. It'll be fine.
Sean, sort it out. But if not, we're going to hopefully get Elizabeth and Sean maybe to have a brief chat about Kill or Be Killed and all the other work. Just Kill or Be Killed.
I know.
So there's a lot more coming. The clock tower's still open. Not for much longer, but it's still open for exhibitors.
It had more spaces, didn't it, this year?
More space. Yeah. So, if you want to show your wares.
Yes. And be harassed by us.
And be harassed. There you go.
That's an invitation.
That's just completely destroyed it, hasn't it?
Who doesn't want to have me hanging around their table?
Sorry. So we hope you enjoyed those interviews. Next episode, we should hopefully, as long as it all goes to plan, have some interviews from the Carlisle Comic Con.
Oh yes, we're going there this weekend.
This weekend, we're recording on the 14th, so the weekend following that. Mm-hmm. There's quite a few names there.
Yes, and Peter Davison.
We
do run into him a lot.
I'm going to try. I may fail. I'm going to try to get an actor or someone on the show. I may fail, but it's worth a shot. We'll give it a go.
Wow, you're setting the bar high there.
We'll give it a go.
It's not going to happen, is it?
So that will be out on the... You see, I always do this. The 1st of April.
Because we're recording on the 14th for the 15th.
That's right.
Yeah. Well done. There's a cat. She's walking under all of the wires. She only does this when we podcast. She doesn't come up here otherwise.
So thank you for listening. We are now going to rock our way out of this podcast.
We are. You need to grow some more hair in so you can mosh.
We have got Promethium, the band. Their new album, Faces of War, has been released. I'm going to play Shell Shock. I Am Metal.
Are you?
I know one of the band members.
You do?
Daniel Lovett's-Horn. Hello, Daniel. We went to the same school.
Okay.
And he often takes a mick out of me because he's metal.
Yeah.
He is.
And you're not, are you? You're more Kylie Minogue and London Boys.
Well, that's it. He takes a mick out of my enjoyment of London Boys when I was a youngster. They are.
They are dead.
That every time someone brings it up, I get a shock of pain.
Does it just make you feel a bit? Ooh.
Down.
Do we need to put them back on YouTube again for you later?
London Nights.
Oh,
But anyway, I'm metal today.
Sure you are.
So enjoy Shell Shock. We've got the whole album. But it's coming out on iTunes soon. It's currently available to buy a CD from their website. Yep. Link will be in the show notes. Enjoy. Based in Lancaster, but I'm sure they travel around the Northwest to play to the metalheads of the world. Enjoy and see you soon.
See you soon.
my sins. Discharge would never free. Tormented by their screams. Suffering, it's all in my head. Consume my bleeding mind. Suffering, it's all in my head. Consume my bleeding mind. A war that no one wins. Conflicted with my shame. Deprived of sanity. Terrors invade my dreams. Crippling anxiety. Face my mortality. Panic attacks again. Drained in my living hand. Suffering, it's all in my head. Consume my bleeding mind. Suffering, it's all in my head. Consume my bleeding mind. I never meant to leave. I didn't want to stay. I fight to survive. It's like there's no escape. Suffering, it's all in my consume my bleeding mind. Suffering, it's all in my consume my bleeding mind. Gun in my mouth, pen in my hand, writing my note, tasting the lead. Gun in my mouth, heart in my head, writing my note, tasting the lead. All in me, bleeding me dead.
Thank you for listening. Find out more about the festival at comicartfestival.com. Find out more about the show and how to contact us at comicartpodcast.uk. Find us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Music composed by Pop Noir.
Down for yourself, down for yourself, down for yourself. It's something else. Down for yourself, down for yourself, down for yourself. It's something else.
This podcast is part of Britpod Scene, an independent network of uniquely British podcasts that's always growing. Check out BritpodScene.com or Britpod Scene on Twitter to find out more.